Welcome to Fun and Games Side Quests. Every episode is a different host sharing a video game they love and why they love it.
Hey everybody, my name is Bill Barber. I am the co-host of the Gaming and Collecting Podcast, a gaming and anime podcast I record with my sister, the 3DO Experience, a 3DO retrospective podcast where we talk about the obscure 3DO interactive multiplayer system, and Geek Addicts, a pop culture podcast I do with my best friend Matt, where we talk about all things nerdy and geeky, as the title would suggest. But I'm here today to talk about one of the more obscure but classic games on the PlayStation 2, Ape Escape 3, a 2005 platformer developed by Sony Computer Entertainment Japan studio, published very late in the PS2's life cycle, and notably kind of an interesting game. This is officially the last mainline entry in the Ape Escape series, even though there has been a large number of games to release in the series since, most of which notably have only released in Japan. This series has sort of an odd relationship with overseas at times. Like, only certain games seem to get released. Most of the games have never left Japan, but we have gotten all the main series titles, with 3 being the most recent. So my history with 3 is quite interesting. This was notably a game I first got to experience. I actually had borrowed it from my friend's house way back in the day when that was still like a thing to do. And I kind of had zero expectations for it at the time, mostly just because it looked extremely odd at the time. Just like the whole premise of capturing monkeys, I thought was just, I don't know. I kind of was just I'll give it a shot, see how it goes. And I ended up getting hooked on it, and I ended up actually 100%ing it within like the week I had borrowed it, to the point where I immediately went out of my way to hunt down my own copy for my collection. Now, for those who don't know, the Ape Escape series is kind of interesting because it kind of started as a tech demo of sorts to actually showcase the PlayStation's DualShock controller with the first game, Ape Escape, on the original PS1. It was kind of interesting how they set the game up. The game was specifically designed around the dual analog layout of the DualShock. It also would use like the vibration features too to kind of fully immerse itself in with the system and the controller. Now, the way the games work are, rather than like the traditional like left analog controls the character, right analog is generally used for camera control. In Ape Escape, the right analog stick is instead used for most of your weapons or gadgets that you get within the game. So say like the main layout of the game is it's essentially Mario 64, but instead of collecting stars, you collect sentient monkeys that are running amok throughout each stage, and you have to use different strategies to catch them because they all have different properties. Like the standard ones with the yellow pants are basically the most generic ones. You just kind of have to sneak up on them and catch them. But then there's like later ones with like red pants that have boxing gloves and will beat up your player if you try to capture them. There's like ones with blue pants, they're super quick. Green pants, which have missile launchers. It's a very wacky game, let's just say. But the main gimmick in the game is you have your monkey catching net, and you use the right analog stick to kind of aim where the net gets thrown out from your character, and you have to use that to catch the monkeys strategically. There's also it's like a sword, but it's kind of like a lightsaber, like stun club, I think is what they call it, and you use that to stun the monkeys or hit the various enemies you'll find throughout the stages. There's also like a hula hoop that makes you run faster. There's like a slingshot, a weird like helicopter thing, all sorts of different like gadgets that all use the right analog stick in unique ways. Like it takes a little bit to get used to it. It is a very unique to play game, but because that right analog stick is used for most of these gadgets, they had to really redesign the rest of the way the game worked. So, like, notably, like, to jump, because another thing, too, is the face buttons are used as kind of like hotkeys to select your different gadgets. So, say, like, the X button on the PlayStation controller would be designated, say, like, the net, and then, like, the the circle button would be the stun club, and then say maybe like triangle would be like slingshot, or square would be the monkey radar. And you can hot select those and swap out with different gadgets. But because the face buttons are all used, they had to redesign, like, say, like jumping. So jumping is instead used by the R1 button, which is really weird at first, but once you get used to it, it's not too big a deal. And then you control the camera with the D-pad. So it is a very, like, non-standard designed game. And it takes a little bit to figure out, but once you get it down, it is, like, such a cool... kind of like challenging game to play. And the reason why 3 is the one that I always go back to is 3 by far has the most unique set of levels and themes in the entire series. Because the previous games had general, fairly standard platforming tropes. Like the first game had a time travel theme and the second one was more of just like an adventure theme. This game instead goes for a movie-based theme where all the stages are movie parodies. Like there is like a Good, the Bad, the Ugly parody, like a Star Wars parody, all sorts of different like movie tropes, and all the levels are super unique because of that. And they also, like, a lot of the monkeys are actually cosplaying in different, like there's a Darth Vader monkey just running around. It's a very Japanese game, like it is very quirky, but it's quirky in that way that is really charming at the same time. And the stages are all fairly linear. You're only required to catch a certain amount of monkeys to get through the main stage. And then, of course, once you get to the final boss, you then get the surprise, nope, you actually have to go back and catch every monkey if you want the true ending. So you kind of have to play through the game twice. But once you get around to, like, once you get around to the second playthrough, you now have all your gadgets. So now you can just breeze through every level. And you'll find, like, all sorts of different alternate routes. There's, like, secret shortcuts and stuff. Another thing, too, that the Ape Escape 3 added was there are transformations that you can do, which are a bonus set of skills that your two playable characters get, where you can transform into, like, different forms on a timer that you can slowly increase or decrease. I mean, you can slowly increase the length of by buying upgrades with the game's upgrade system. But the different power-ups give you, say, stronger attacks. They give you alternate ways to catch the monkeys. And they let you do, like, special skills. Like, there's one that lets you, like, run across tight ropes, like, really quick. There's another one that allows you to phase through specific portals that you'll find throughout levels. Stuff like that. And they also allow you to find different routes later on with specific ones. And because of that, like... it makes the game super replayable in a really fun way that you don't really see in a lot of modern games, I'd say. Like, to the way that this one does it. Because it's really fun, too, because the levels aren't super big, for the most part. The later ones get a little long, but, like, for the most part, the levels are fairly quick. You can go through beginning to end. There's no heavy backtracking, unless it's, like, to find, like, some obscure item, or you missed, say, like, a monkey at the start that you weren't expecting to find. It's really cool stuff like that. The game also has a ton of bonus stuff. Like, there is a whole bunch of different, like, cutscenes, like, different alternative power-ups. Like, there's a RC car gadget you get later on, and you can replace it with, like, a flan, just because it's quirky like that. You get different alternative, like, cosmetics. There's cheat codes to find, like, very specific, like, bonus monkeys, which are just fun throughout the levels. But the biggest bonus thing are the little mini games, and the mini games are, two of them are fairly generic. Like, there's this generic, like, shot put football kind of game it's fun. There's, like, a racing game, and then the most interesting one, which is a tie-in with Metal Gear Solid of all things, is this mini game called Metal Gear Solid, where it is straight up a just Metal Gear Solid parody, where you play as a monkey that is essentially Solid Snake, and you legit just play Metal Gear levels, and it is almost its own game within Ape Escape 3, like, to the point where it has its own save dedicated to the memory card, and it is the most charming thing I have ever played. Like, it's all Metal Gear. If you're a Metal Gear Solid fan, like, it is the most charming thing you'll ever see. And it's like just this little tiny, like little bonus thing just thrown within Ape Escape 3 of all things. I believe it's kind of a tie-in with Metal Gear Solid 3, which had the Snake versus Monkey minigame on the original PS2 version of Subsistence, which unfortunately is not available on the later re-releases, I believe, because of obvious reasons. But yeah, just super fun thing. Like, the humor is very goofy. Like, there's so many movie puns. The ending does get a little challenging, especially because the controls aren't perfect. Like, one downside I would say is the jump is essentially a Castlevania jump, where once you start moving forward, you're not really stopping until you hit the ground. So you got to be very careful, especially on a later episode, which literally involves you jumping across planes in the air. It is a little tense. That's all I will say, because if you miss, you drop like a rock, and it is something. Yeah, it's one of those games that I always have a soft spot for. I am always very bummed that the series essentially came and went and never really took off the same way in America that it did in Japan. Because I have imported a lot of the later, like, Japan-only games, particularly for the PSP. There was a ton on PSP, and they are all so fun and super quirky, and I just, like, love this style of game. Unfortunately, at this point, Ape Escape 3 is only available on the PlayStation 2. It was rated recently for PS4, so I'm not sure if that or PS4, PS5. I'm not sure if that means anything going forward. We did get Ape Escape 2 on the PlayStation Network, so you never know. It's harder to say now that Japan Studio is no longer a thing. But in the end, I was just really happy I got to talk about Ape Escape 3 for everyone. And once again, guys, happy gaming.
Do you find yourself playing older games and wishing that there were new discussions about those games? Enter Tales from the Backlog. Hi, I'm Dave Jackson, and on each episode, I'm joined by a guest to break down those games that may be stuck in your ever-expanding backlog. Each episode looks at one game in depth, focusing on mechanics, story, music, and other aspects with no spoilers until a clearly marked spoiler wall in the middle. If you've played the game, go ahead and climb that spoiler wall and enjoy in-depth story discussions, and if not, jump out when we warn you and maybe go play that game for yourself. We have over 100 episodes in the feed, everything from Disco Elysium to Tunic to discussion episodes about how to get into horror games, and if games actually need to be fun, or if they have more to offer. I guarantee that there's something in there for everybody. Once again, that's Tales from the Backlog, available wherever your podcasts are found.
CPOV. CertainPOV.com.